HorrorDeconstruction.
What's up, everybody? It's the HorrorDeconstruction. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, but mostly on YouTube. Give us a like, share, and subscribe, and we appreciate it. I'm your host, Komp. Today's film is Smiley Face Killers, 2020. It's about a handsome young soccer player named Jake Graham who believes he is going insane, unable to shake the feeling of being stalked by something, by someone. Directed by Tim Hunter, written by Bret Easton Ellis, starring Ronan Rubinstein, Mia Serafino, Crispin Glover, and a whole bunch of other people. So, why did I pick Smiley Face Killers 2020? Just solely on the name of Bret Easton Ellis. So, if you don't know who Breastons, his big breasts, no. If you don't know who Bret Easton Ellis is, he is a writer, most famously for the novel An American Psycho, or American Psycho, which got turned into the pretty fantastic Mary Harron film with Christian Bale as the lead. So that whole film is a phenomenon on its own right. It became pretty famous after it did not make money in the theaters, which is a shame because it's a great film. It's a very good adaptation of a very horrific novel, and I mean horrific in a good way because I actually have the book myself, and the book is grotesque and parts of it are unfilmable for a mainstream film, but Mary Harron did it the right way, and I think it was interesting to have a female director and female writer adapt such a novel that is male-based and, captures the mania of a psychopathic male. They did a great job with it, and Christian Bale was incredible. Anyway, coming from that, Bret Easton Ellis, I've read a couple of his books, and there are probably two good adaptations of his work. The other one being Rules of Attraction, which is a fantastic movie. They try to sell it like if it was some sort of CW, or I guess, WWWB channel, if that's how they used to sing it, show, like Dawson's Creek or whatever the hell else shows those were like back then. But it's a fantastic film, and you should watch it. It's just screwed up people having relationship issues, and that's why I'm bringing that up, because Bret Easton Ellis knows how to write very sociopathic, solipsistic characters. These very vain, very rich, aesthetic-driven characters that don't give a shit about anything else, and they'll spend pages upon pages explaining, the Gucci clothing that they're wearing, or the bag, or the shop that they ate, the lunch that they had, and stuff like that, and everything else seems a little bit inconsequential. I've read a couple of Bret Easton Ellis's novels, obviously American Psycho. I did read Rules of Attraction. I read Lunar Park, and funny enough, I was walking around Manhattan and I saw a copy of Lunar Park in the street, and I did not take it, especially in these type of days. But Bret Easton Ellis, I'm going to just call him Breast Easton Ellis. I'm going to call him Tits Easton Ellis. But Bret Easton Ellis has his whole career, as well as writing books. I think he really wants to be a filmmaker, and I think he also, he's been writing scripts recently for a lot of films, and he has just not been doing well with these films, or these people just don't know how to adapt it. I honestly think he's obviously the best when he's writing novels, and that's an argument people can make. The guy himself, I don't particularly agree with him politically on some issues, but politics is whatever the fuck people want them to be. That's fine. But I listened to his podcast. It's great podcast. He comes out, he says he's apolitical, but he's slanted in a certain way. But I think there's an argument to be made that he talks about that does make sense in some issues, but other things just are completely stupid. They're just bullshit. But who am I to say this? Either way, he has a fantastic, very learned podcast, interesting podcast. I think it's a Patreon exclusive show, but you can get the archives of the free episodes he used to have him on Podcast One. But he's a very smart guy. And the thing is, he's very straight from the hip. Like, the guy's not a bullshitter that I can see. Even when he did an interview about this particular film, he talked about the issues he had in, the process of making it, that he wrote it and he wanted to direct it, but the money wasn't going to go to it unless this other director came in. And, he was just like, he really shits on his own movies if they don't come off well. And most famously, he did a film, he wrote the film The Canyons, which I believe was Kickstarted. It might have been Kickstarter, the other crowdfunding service that they did. and it was with Lindsay Lohan, and I don't know. I only saw parts of it, and I was not interested in going to go see a Lindsay Lohan film myself. He also wrote a screenplay for the film The Informers, and I don't think that went well. I heard people said that movie was terrible. I'm not sure. I heard it was bad. I believe I read the book. I'm not sure. He obviously, inspired the film Less Than Zero, which I think was much more graphic. The novel was much more graphic than the film came out to be, and I think that the film was like they fell in love with the aesthetic of it, but they didn't go for the real deep end part of the storyline, and they just sort of completely changed things. They got rid of some sort of gay aspects of it and stuff like that. But whatever. Anyway, so Bret Easton Ellis is obsessed with being a director, and rightfully so. If he feels that he can adapt his own material, that's fine. He's recently directed a series called The Departed, which was for, I think, a streaming app service that kind of vanished. So I think now he just puts it on his own site and stuff like that. And anyway, obviously we can see that I think that Bret Easton Ellis, when he tries to write screenplays, it just doesn't go well. I'm trying to figure out why that is, because if you can write a novel, you'd figure they'd have the sort of issue of doing that. It's sort of like the original film, the vampire film Let the Right One In. The original version, not the American remake. The original version, which the writer of the actual novel adapted it for the film as a screenplay, and it's almost a one-for-one adaptation. It's incredible how much he got into that film from the book, where he just cut complete scenes out into the making of the film, but it did not lose anything structure-wise. The big thing that I thought that they shouldn't have gotten rid of was Hakan, but Hakan was a character who's the serial killer in the film, and I'm still talking about Let the Right One In, was the caretaker of Ellie, and he turns into this sort of ghoul with a constant throbbing erection trying to get people, but they cut that out of the book, so whatever. I'm sure they'll cut that out of the mini-series that's coming up. Back to Bret Easton Ellis. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what the disconnect is of him writing a screenplay for a film, because I can't say that I've seen any film of his that he's written the screenplay for. I don't know if I want to, because Smiley Face Killers, I only saw this because of Bret Easton Ellis. Do you understand? Like, this is the only reason I went to go see this, because I was a fan of his books. I haven't read all of his books, but I do want to go through them. I think Lunar Park is the last novel I read of his. I'm sure it was an audiobook, I'm not sure. But he is obsessed with aesthetics, and I understand that. I get it, because his characters are very vain, very vapid. And then when he adapts them straight to film, or if they're adapted to film and they just sort of seem like aimless people with no sort of, well, obviously no direction, that's what I meant to say anyway, they come off as sort of empty characters, and you're supposed to read their emotions on their face, but usually they just have a blank face on. And with this film, Smiley Face Killers, it's based on a theory. I think they say it's debunked, but there's a lot of men that have been found. This is a real thing, not the Smiley Face Killer, the idea of it, but there's a real thing about these men who have been washed up ashore. And a lot of cops had noted that they see this spray painting of a smiley face wherever these bodies are. So then these two cops decided to attribute this to a nefarious serial killer duo. So, according to the trivia from IMDb, loosely based on the smiley face murder theory, in which the bodies of young men have been mysteriously found in water with smiley face graffiti nearby dating back to the 1990s. The deaths have been ruled as accidental drowning, but many believe a serial killer or a group of killers may be involved. The plot of this movie is based on the latter theory. So, make of that what you will. I think it's an interesting theory. I think everybody's always obviously obsessed with true crime nowadays, but this film does that no service at all. And having seen the film, and then reading after an interview that Bret Easton does, where he completely shits on it, it said, oh, we're going to see, it's spoilers in this episode. Bret Easton says, oh, it'd be interesting to see the last 24 hours of this character. And I was like, oh, if the film had been framed as that, if the opening of the fucking movie said, oh, these are the last 24 hours of so-and-so's life, Jake's life, then I can see it, because other than that, nothing fucking happens. Nothing happens. This film is about an hour and 40 or so minutes, and I can tell you there's a decent 5 minutes in it. There really is only a decent 5 minutes in this film, and that's when like all the serial killer chaos and murder shit happens. Other than that, oh boy, is this a slog. Like, I can't imagine. I really can't imagine how they got this greenlit. The script must have been Jake, rides his bike to the school. Jake drinks soda. Drake eats this. Drake gets pot. Nothing fucking happens. So I'm going to tell you what happens with this film, even though I just said nothing happens. Here's this very handsome young man. His name is Jake, right? He is. We're supposed to, I guess, understand what his past is due to the minimal dialogue in this film. And I will say this: the dialogue sounds like actual people talking. Like, it sounds like, it doesn't sound like so complex. Although there are some info dumps where you're just like, oh shit, come on, get the fuck here. But even the info dumps at least sound somewhat realistic. And I think that Bret Easton Ellis has a good way of dialogue between characters. They don't sound too mechanical like in other films where it's just unbelievable. The dialogue's unbelievable. So Jake is played by Ronan Rubinstein. He's decent. He's okay in the role. Everybody in this film is sort of okay. I will tell you this. I think that I was surprised that there was Cody Simpson in this, and I was like, how the fuck do I know Cody Simpson? I wasn't sure if he was a YouTube guy or something, or I just remember the name, and I was like, how do I know this name? Like, who the hell is Cody Simpson? But it bothered me, but I know I'd seen him, and he looked completely like nothing as to what I remember with him looking like, and I think he was a kid when I first heard of Cody Simpson way back when. So Jake is this guy who is, I guess he plays soccer or something. I don't know what the fuck he does. They bring this up. You never see him play a sport. He is this sort of disaffected loner guy. He clearly has mood issues. He's depressed all the time. We find that out because his girlfriend, played by Mira Serafino, who's okay. She plays a character named Karen. It clearly is a Bret Easton name because it's Keren instead of Karen. And that's the thing that I was like, Karen, what kind of fucking name is Karen? But you know what? At least I've never heard of a Karen before, so it's nice to see that there's Karen. So there's Karen, that's his girlfriend, and she's trying to, deal with him. There's this kind of info dump where she says, oh, you're not taking your pills, and so already was supposed to lead in as an audience, like, oh, he doesn't, something must have happened to him. We don't know anything that happens. We just know that he's depressed. That's it. If he doesn't take his pills, he must be like a manic depressive or some sort of something that's going on with him mentally. And he stopped taking his pills because I guess it must have really fucked him up. I don't know what it messed him up. I can imagine what he is. You see what he is without drugs, and if he says it messes up, it must have been really horrible. I'm making this sound more interesting than it is because it isn't. So it's all that's bullshit info dump. He tries to sleep with his girlfriend, and he can't get it up for her. He does later on, but he doesn't do it the first time. So clearly he really is, because Karen's a very beautiful young girl. Everybody in the film is fucking beautiful. It's just this is a type of movie where just like you look at everybody and you're like, oh man, like holy shit, am I ugly? But I'm watching it and he has a best friend. His best friend is, I believe it's Gabriel, played by Amadeus Serafini. I'm not sure if that's the right guy, because everybody sort of looks the same in this film, and I might be wrong. It might not be him. Either way, somebody is his best friend, and I can't remember what the fucking guy's name is. His best friend, he's trying to get him. He's a decent actor, but honestly, it might be the director's fault and the writer's fault, because they don't really give these characters much to do, these actors much to do. And his best friend is trying to get him out of his funk, and everybody's relatively worried about this guy. And the interesting thing about this film is that it's probably one of the first times where actively I had noticed while watching it. I knew, because I know Bret Easton Ellis is a gay man, and and he puts the film in this interesting sort of male gaze, but on men. Now, male gaze, if there's an argument about it where the way that women are objectified on film, and there's no question about it. If you watch a Michael Bay film, you're like, oh yeah, I can see, because if you see the main actor of that, not Seth, or whatever the hell the actor's name is, the kid who goes, no, that guy, he's like walking around, you just see regular camera shots of him. But when you see Megan Fox, it's all slow motion, it's all pushing up to her ass and her breasts and stuff like that. So that's considered the male gaze. And there's an argument for it. I agree. I'm sure it's there. Just as I'm sure there's a female gaze, but nobody pays attention to, so I don't know what the hell the female gaze is, because I've never thought about it consciously, but it for certainly does exist. It has to exist. Because, obviously men are very, primal animals when they see things visually, and it knocks off for them, and so that pisses off some people, which I can completely understand. So seeing this, the only other time I had seen something like this, where it's sort of this longingly male gaze look at a man, was funny enough, because I used to work at a movie theater. It used to be it was a Tyler Perry film. I don't know what it was, but there's like a scene where a guy playing basketball, like shirtless, and it was like on him, like if it was on a woman, say like on a mainstream quote unquote film, like a guy direct, like if Michael Bay had directed it. It was like just slow on him, and I was like, it could also say like I haven't really seen many what they would say female films. You know what I mean? I watch films by both genders, or whatever gender or whatever you kind of consider yourself, like a Karen Kusama, because I don't see like a Karen Kusama film, and I've never seen a movie where she's sort of longingly looking at a man, because I don't think she's worried. She's more about telling the storyline than she is about just sort of focusing on a guy's shirtless. Like that's not her type of film. From most of the female directors that I've seen, I've never seen that. Maybe actually maybe in American Psycho there are shots of Christian Bale that are like that. So there are like scenes where Christian Bale in American Psycho is very I assume they're sexualized for people who are sexually attracted to the male form, as in Christian Bale. So that sort of happens in here. So it's interesting to sort of like, and it's not off-putting. It's just like, oh, okay, I can see. It was just funny because I know Bret Easton Ellis talks about that a lot in his podcasts about about men that he finds attractive. And he's just, in general, he thinks that both sexes are very attractive. So this film is chock full of gorgeous people. The only person who's not gorgeous in the film, quote unquote, is Crispin Glover, because they put this sort of makeup effect on him, and that's an interesting hire of Christian Glover. I don't have any sort of opinion on Christian Glover. He's sort of like the wacky actor, and they sort of put him in these sort of weird roles and stuff. But he does it well, I guess. And but anyway, back to Jake Graham, and that's a whole thing that I noticed throughout this film, and I would have said that would have considered this sort of a LGBTQ type of movie, because the writer is homosexual. I don't know if the director is, but he's strictly in a heterosexual relationship. Jake is with his girlfriend, so I think that roundly disqualifies that ideal. Anyway, Jake is, like I said, an aimless guy. We spend the whole fucking first 40 minutes of him just walking around, just doing nothing, and you just like, I'm like, there were scenes where it was minutes upon minutes of doing nothing, and I was like, get to it. Like, I like long films, and sometimes films where nothing really happens, you're just sort of drinking in the experience, but there's nothing happening in this film. Soundtrack is great. I'll give them that. The soundtrack is really good. But it's that type of film where nothing happens, so much of nothing that happens in this film, that they constantly have a soundtrack playing. I can't remember whether there's no soundtrack happening in this movie. It just seems to be going on. And I think that they were like, oh shit, we're afraid to let the scene play silently, so let's just put just like, great soundtrack. Anyway, so I was fine with that, but you can tell that there was nothing happening. Now, I think they should have approached this film in a separate way. The film should have just begun straight with Jake being hassled by these serial killers, or whatever, the smiley face, because it starts out with like scene upon scene of things happening, of people getting kidnapped and stuff. The first scene of the movie has no fucking connection with the rest of the movie. It's a goat or a lamb or something. I think it is a goat. A goat gets killed, and then so does a dog. And then the farmer finds that and goes, "What the hell?" And I was like, what the fuck does that have to do with the movie? Like, I would think maybe I guess it's a sacrificial thing, because we find out later on that ridiculously that the cult, these three guys that are killer, I think it was two men and a woman, the killers, they're worshiping some sort of water god, and they're like, oh, they keep texting Jake anonymously, oh, you're gonna be in the water soon, the water needs you. So I guess it's supposed to be some sort of bullshit. It's really just poor fucking bullshit writing. They tried to do some sort of cult shit with like Hereditary, but like the cult's not really explored. You just see that these three people in a van pick, handsome people up and then drown them, or they take all their blood for, I guess, whatever, a bloodletting ritual. And it's just like, who gives a shit? Like, Start that from the fucking beginning of the movie. Don't make me watch an hour or 40 minutes of this fucking guy doing nothing, walking around and being depressed. Who cares? So he has his depressive outfit. So he pisses off his girlfriend. His girl is talking to her ex-boyfriend. That's all that is. All the bullshit where he's supposed to look crazy is supposed to inform the ending of the film, the stinger of the film, where, oh, he was misunderstood, he wasn't acting right, he must have killed himself. So when they find a fucking knife wound in his neck and him drained of blood, like, what are you gonna think? Like, it's just so stupid. Like, he killed himself by draining all of his blood out of his own body. Like, are they thinking that's what's gonna happen? Like, are you kidding me? It's so stupid. It's like, you're not thinking about it. And even Bret Easton Ellis, when they asked him in the interview about it, they were like, oh, why didn't you go more into the cult? And he goes, oh, it would probably sound stupid the more you think about it. And I was like, yeah, no fucking shit, it is stupid. I will give him this, the gore is very good in this movie, and those are the only 5 fucking good minutes in this movie. There's a scene where Jake's roommate shows up. I guess Jake and his roommate have issues with each other, and his roommate shows up and he gets his fucking head smashed in with a hammer. Great gore effect, fantastic gore effect. There's a scene where, you know, Jake is towards the end, right before he gets killed. He gets taken out of this gas station, and these people in this car, 4 people in the car, get massacred by the smiley face killers. Fantastic fucking gore, great gore in that scene. Even when Jake is pulled out of the water, blood, you know, when they kill Jake and they pull his blood out, and I was like, well, he really is not going to make it out of this. I was like, okay, I'll give him respect for that they just fucking kill this guy. But then it just leads up to, honestly, I wish that there was some sort of justice in the film, but you don't know much about these serial killers. Like, fucking, this guy, Crispin Glover, made an easy, like, $7,000 that day or something just to show up for, like, a couple of scenes, because it's just like, what else did he do? Like, they did nothing. So they get into a car and they start saying crazy shit. Like, that's it? Like, you're not gonna investigate more of this? It's just like, oh, here they are. Those guys are out there. They're scary. Who gives a flying fuck? They're boring. It's boring. So the gore of also, you know, him getting killed and they stab him in the throat and he dies. It was a good death scene. And then when they pull his body out of the water bloated, great effects. Fantastic visual effects for all these dead people. But it's not enough. It fucking stinks. It's like the rest of the movie is just nothing. It's bullshit. And you're sitting there going, what am I bothering with this film for? I did that. I was like, what was this movie? It was pretty quick because I was watching it while exercising. So I saw it over 2 days, though. I wasn't rushing to finish the movie. And it seems just to be like, who cares? It's really a who gives a shit movie. Because, and also the male gaze also plays in when Jake, when they're about to sacrifice him, they have him tied up in the back of this van, right? And they're gonna drain blood from him. So he's just nude except for some sort of electrical tape over his genitals. And I was like, okay, so not that I was asking for it, but what did the tape on the genitals mean? Like, all right, why don't you just make him naked? Like, who gives a fuck? Not that I was asking for it. But you know, that definitely was, you know, a sort of a sexy shot for the people that appreciate these people. Like I said, everybody in here looks like a fucking, they walked out of a Benetton ad or something like that, or really like some good looking casting calls. Like, they put every good looking person in the world in this movie for no reason. And it's funny because the funny thing is, Jake is a sort of athletic guy, right? And there's a complaint by one of the serial killers. They're like, oh, I told you, he's too strong to, you know, we should have got somebody who wasn't as strong as him, you know, whatever, we'll look for somebody else. And then at the very end, like before the end credits, there you can see they do the whole sting with the whole spooky thing, like, oh, they're out there, they're still gonna look for, I guess, handsome white guys to kill. Oh, watch out, handsome white people, you know, you guys are the most endangered people out there. This guy, the last guy that they like focus on at the end, is such a handsome built guy that I looked at myself in the mirror and I was disgusted with myself because this guy was so good looking that it's like, fuck this guy. He should have gotten taken out. But this guy was twice the size of Jake. This guy was like a muscular bound, like he walked out of like some sort of Greek you know, sweat room or some shit like that. And I'm like, this guy's gonna karate kick the shit out of these serial killers, these guys that look like it's obviously funny that the bad people in the movie are the only ugly characters in the film. Even like one of them is good looking, but the woman's face is all screwed up with makeup, and like Crispin Glover's face is all goofy. So this really is a film just if you just want to see good looking visuals, then this is the movie for you, with good-looking people doing good-looking shit and getting killed good-looking, then I guess you can enjoy it. But as a film itself, it really is. It's as empty as you can imagine. There is nothing here. There is absolutely zero need to watch this movie, which sucks because I like breast tits Easton Ellis, and it's just like it's unbelievable that this movie got made. It feels like it was like they had the last 40 minutes were a film, like a short film, and then they said, "Oh fuck, let's add an hour to the first half that has nothing to do with that means nothing." I kept thinking about the other film, those films that like star Macon Blair, those sort of indie action sort of drama, like gory films that Macon Blair. Just look up Macon Blair, like in movies like I Don't Feel Safe in This World Anymore, stuff like that. Like if the movie just started out 5 minutes completely just dedicated to his bullshit background story, Jake's background story, he's nuts, or excuse me, he's not mentally together, and then it just completely from there goes on to these serial killers attacking him, that'd be great. If it was a race against the clock, fucking fantastic, that would be great. Here we're sloshing through an hour of bullshit. I don't know how anybody could have made this one look good. They needed to completely rework that storyline because it just did not work. And then at the end, when the news are interviewing Jake's best friend, Jake's love rival, and even his girlfriend, that was the most unbelievable shit I couldn't believe. The best friend's dialogue I can believe. The love rival, I can believe his dialogue. The girlfriend was like, "Oh, he was acting strange. He was calling himself." Like, did you really just throw your ex-boyfriend under the bus that you really cared for, and you found out that he's disappeared? You're gonna throw your boyfriend under the fucking bus like that? Like, that was completely unrealistic. You know who says that? A person that killed the person. She didn't kill this guy, so it didn't make any sense for her fucking weird answers at the news. Like, I would assume she would have been so fucking broken up that her boyfriend, who she really cared about, suddenly she's in the news saying, throwing him, making him sound like a piece of shit. Very stupid. That made no fucking sense. It was very dumb. So for that, that right there, like, I'm giving this film more time than I should have in discussing it. The ideas behind it could have been interesting, but they didn't. The approach of a male gaze on a man, it's interesting. They tried, but for the film it didn't work. Go watch a Tyler Perry movie. Go watch Christian Bale, American Psycho, if you're into looking at good-looking guys, or just go watch some sort of pornography with good-looking guys. That's all up to you. It's not for me, so it didn't keep my interest that well in this film, but if it's for you, then good for you. But it's not going to be with this movie, because this movie sucks balls. So with that rating, I would give this film a 3 out of 10. Thinking you got away with electric tape on your genitals, and you don't care. You just go into a gas station store, and you're like, I'm gonna get away, even though I got electric tape on my genitals. And with that, this has been the Horror Deconstruction.
The HorrorDeconstruction.